It's important to understand that in order to write, you have to be healthy. We'd all like to believe that it's just perseverance. But why is it that some authors are able to write more than others? Does it just come down to having more ideas or an over? And how do you achieve this? Well, that's what I'm talking about on this week's episode of Spooky Writes. So, let's head into the storm. Okay, right. Hello, writers, and welcome back to Spooky Writes. My name's Kemal Onor. I'm a horror short story author, and if this is your first time, hi, how are you? Have you considered subscribing? I post videos Mondays and Fridays and shorts between those, so make sure that you hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. That lets you know whenever I post a video, and that way you never miss an episode. So yes, some of the greatest authors of all times had their addictions, they had their cruxes that they fell on. I would argue that this did not make them more creative, it did not make them able to produce more work. If anything, it led to them having an early demise. And so remember that you can't make money if you're dead. If you're dead, you can't write if you're dead. So you have to take care of your health and you have to take care of your mental health, because if you're struggling with whatever it is, it's going to take away from your focus of the ability to write. I personally believe that writing can be a great way to help someone through dark times. I vividly remember that I went through a really hard breakup during my second. For me, as a way of getting over that breakup, I really had to focus on writing every single day, and I decided that I was going to write a short story every single day for 30 days. I was just going to write a short story, and whatever came out was what came out. And so every day I challenged myself to say every single day for the next month, I have to write a story. I have to do something that's going to take my mind off of this thing that is hurting me, this thing that if I thought about it more, I'd be probably crying every single day. And so it was a great healing opportunity. It was a great way for me to say, I'm going to put the thing that is hurting me to the side, and I'm going to focus on something that brings me joy. I'm going to focus on writing these stories. And granted, a lot of these stories were not great stories. A lot of these stories were breakup stories. A lot of these stories were very negative in terms of how I viewed relationships at that time. Because of course I came out of a breakup and I was trying to recover from this breakup. So naturally I was going to write stories about people getting into relationships and then the repercussions of those relationships, and a lot of it had very negative views of relationships in general. And I brought some of this work to my workshop for the next semester of grad school, and several of my classmates, several of my constituents told me that when they read that work for the workshop, they were a little concerned. They were just, are you okay? And I was okay, but this was my way of coping and my way of trying to get over the heartache, trying to get over the heartbreak. And it was very much a healing opportunity for me. So if you're struggling with something, I think writing is a great way to help you get through some heartache. Just focusing on something that is not, again, if it's a breakup, it's a great way to try and get over some sort of heartache. It's a great thing to focus on something that is constructive, something that's going to help you benefit, and something that's going to be more creative. Also know that you have to have a healthy mind. You have to cultivate a healthy mind if you're going to create a lot of work, because so many times we get in our own ways. So many times we stop ourselves before we ever have the chance to write our ideas. And a lot of this comes from us, especially as we get older. As we get older, we'll say, this idea is dumb. I'm not even gonna write this idea because it's dumb. It's not gonna go anywhere. And we stop ourselves before we ever have that chance to get to the point when there could be something good in this idea. but you're already hamstringing yourself. You're already saying, no, this is a bad idea. And so you have to cultivate a mind that is more open. You have to cultivate a mind that is open to possibilities. And the number one way that I know to do this is you have to start trying to think about the world as though you were your child self. So how do you go about activating your child mind? Well, I would recommend that you go for a walk, you go out, you get in nature, and just try and view the world with that childlike awe, that sense of magic, that sense that there's wonder everywhere and that there's a boundless amount of possibilities in the world. And so, because again, so many times we'll stop ourselves, we'll say, I have an idea, but it's stupid, it's silly. It doesn't make sense. If I have a talking dog in my story, it's a silly idea. And so many stories might seem silly to you, but they might seem wonderful and interesting to someone else who's not you. So again, you have to try and cultivate a childlike mind, and the way that you do this is you read a lot. You need to read a lot of stories and try and go on walks, try and just let your mind be free. Try and cultivate a less critical mind. Again, you want to view the world in this kind of childlike lens that will allow yourself to write, that will not say this is stupid, this is silly, that will say, hey, that seems interesting. And so you want to have this mind that is interested in so many possibilities, because again, if we think about some of the most successful stories out there, a lot of times if we boil down that idea, it might seem like something silly. Like, what if there was a boy who lived in a closet and he had magical abilities, right? That seems kind of silly on the surface, but that was also a very successful book. So do the best job that you can to try and quiet that adult, that critical voice in your head that says, there's no such thing as ghosts, there's no such thing as magic, there's no such thing as these other worlds, there's no such thing as a Middle Earth. And so by reading, you're going to start to open your mind up. You're going to see that there's a boundless amount of possibilities of opportunity to write. Not every story has been told, not every story has been written. And a lot of people will say every story has already been told. And to a degree, this is partially true, but not every story has ever been told in your voice. So again, by writing as much as you possibly can, you're going to help discover your voice. You're going to discover your unique way of storytelling. And I've done a video all about how to find your unique voice. I will link that right here. It'll be in one of these corners here somewhere. So you need to be open to ideas, and you need to ask yourself those what if questions. What if there was a magical world? What if there was a school for witches and wizards? What if there was a giant monster suddenly attacking a city? What if there were swords? What if there was a magic system? And by asking yourself these what if questions, it'll allow you to just kind of pull at the strings of your ideas. Whatever idea it might be, what if I came home and my dog suddenly sprouted wings? What if I came home and my cat could suddenly talk? How would this affect a character, and what would the affect be on the story? And how do I start to pull a little further and lead myself down this what if trail of breadcrumbs, so to speak? Because if you're already telling yourself that your ideas are silly, if you're already telling yourself that your ideas are stupid, if you're already criticizing your ideas before you have the chance to write them out, and by all means, I've written a lot of really bad stories. I've written a lot of stories that have been just for me. And these stories, I don't view these as a waste of time. Again, I was always constantly writing until 3, 4 in the morning during undergrad, because I had these stories that I wanted to I had some writing that I wanted to work on that I wasn't planning on sharing with anyone. I wasn't planning on giving it to a professor. I wasn't planning on turning it in for any amount of points or any amount of credit. It was just simply writing for me. And that's how you have to view some of your early writing. It's writing that's just for you. It's not writing that's going to see the light of day. And it might not even, you might end up doing 2, 3 drafts on your early writing and still decide that this is just for you. This is just personal writing, and writing is a journey of self-discovery. You have to learn who you are. You have to figure out what your voice is. You have to figure out what is important to you as an author, what is important to you as a writer. And so you do this by writing a lot of bad stuff. And so you have to be open to the possibilities. If you're going to, from the very beginning, say, no, this is a dumb idea, I'm not even going to write it, well, then you're never going to know if it could have actually been a story, if it might have ballooned into a novel. You might have gotten 2-3 chapters in and said, oh, if I change it a little bit, it'll become something great. And so you have to be open to the possibility that your stories could be great, but it comes down to execution, and you have to write as much as you possibly can. So try and become a writing machine, and you do this by opening your mind, by viewing the world with a sense of awe, trying to tap into that childlike mind of yours. So instead of telling yourself no and stopping yourself from writing these stories, start to turn your mind into a way of saying yes. Say yes to every idea that comes along. And some you might write and you might just get a few hundred words in and say, this isn't really going anywhere. And by all means at that point say, you know what, this isn't going anywhere, and it's not the story that I want to tell. And at that point you can say, you know what, I'm going to kind of scrap this story, but I think it's still important to have these little snippets of stories that you've started, because six months, a year, 2 years down the road, as your writing skills improve, you'll look back on that work and you might say, what if I revisit that story? What was I trying to get at? What was the initial spark of interest in this work for me when I first came up with this idea? And then most importantly, you have to make writing a habit. And I've also done a video all about how to make writing a habit, because if you make writing a habit, this is going to increase your productivity. It's going to turn you into a writing machine. If you wake up at the same time every single morning, if you drink the same caffeinated drink, if you wake up at 6 in the morning and you're at your desk with a cup of coffee, or you're at your desk with a cup of tea, or whatever morning drink you like to drink, and you just make this a habit every morning, you're at your desk at the same time, have your Word document open, you have the same cup of tea, the same cup of coffee, and you do it the same way every single day, your body is going to know that this is your writing time. And so you have to just try and make writing a habit. So if you make writing a habit and you say yes more than no, it's going to help your productivity is going to skyrocket. It's going to go right through the roof, and you're going to end up producing so much work. And this is really going to help. So your writing ability will skyrocket once you start writing more. Your writing ability will go through the roof the moment that you say yes more than no. So start out just by challenging yourself. Say for 1 week, I'm going to wake up at 5 in the morning. Every single morning, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. And by 5:30, I'm going to have my cup of coffee. I'm going to be sitting at my desk, and I'm going to write for 1 hour. So from 5:30 to 6:30, that's my writing time. And maybe you adjust this for whatever time that works best for you. I've always found that writing first thing in the morning is the best way for me to produce a large amount of work. It's the best way for me to be focused. But if you're more that you're able to write in the afternoon or in the evening, again, you want to adjust it, and you want it to be the same time every day. You want your body to instinctually know, this is my writing time, and your mind needs to be consciously take on this knowledge, and your mind will subconsciously know that, oh, it's 6 o'clock, I have to be at my desk writing. And you do this by making everything the same. You sit down with the same cup of coffee, and you drink it out of the same mug, and by doing this over and over, it's going to build those mind connections, and eventually you'll be able to do it on autopilot. And again, this is all about producing a large amount of work. It's about getting into the act of writing and writing and writing. And again, not all this writing has to have publication as its end goal. There's certainly a lot of writing that you should be doing for your own self. There's a lot of writing that, especially early on, so much of your early writing will be just for you. Not everything that you write is going to be of publishable quality. I have stories that I've saved from way back in my undergrad days, and I'm holding on to them, but I don't have any real plans for them to ever see the day unless I at some point decide to make the decision to go back and completely overhaul them, completely make the changes that need to be made to make them of a publishable quality. So say yes to your ideas and make it a habit. Write as much as you possibly can. Try and tap into your childhood mind, and you will become a writing machine. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep it spooky. And of course, here's your writing prompt for sticking all the way to the end. The first thing I did when my dog sprouted wings was blank. So set your timer and start writing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.